Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Matt Townsend Show. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Townsend. Today we're talking about the meaning of life, and what we did was this. It's really pretty interesting, right? So if you sit and think about what makes you happy and what makes your routine day have purpose, wouldn't that be powerful to figure out? What is it about your life? What is it about your purpose? So we sent our own Mike Pond out, as well as James. James went out with Mike, I think, to make sure Mike didn't get hurt. And they went out around, just on the street and asked everyday people living everyday lives what made their life meaningful. Here's what they said.
This is Mike Pond in the field reporting for the Matt Townsend Show. We're going to talk to some people on the street and see what brings meaning to their life. So what brings meaning to your life?
Wow, that's a really deep question. I don't know if I can answer that really simply. One thing that I really enjoy is playing sports.
Oh, I'd have to say family. I think my family, both my parents and my brother and my husband, I think that they bring a lot of joy to my life and a lot of meaning.
I would definitely say religion is a big key.
I like playing, and I also like going on trips. And I like doggies.
Well, right now I'm studying electrical engineering, and that's something that's just really interesting to me. And it's also something right now I'm preparing to be able to provide for a family that I want to have someday. So that motivates a lot of my study habits and different things.
Food, family, and traveling. I love traveling and get a lot of meaning from that.
Well, I mean, there's hope, goal for a better future. It's a goal that your life it has meaning, that there's a purpose behind it, that it's just not like you wake up and you pass on and then that's it, and there's nothing more. We hope and desire is what really causes us to act and to have faith. Everything that we do is based on faith.
I like to travel. When I travel, I get to see a lot of different places and experience a lot of different things. I like to travel.
People, definitely people. My friends and family are the biggest part of my life, and people just kind of make my world.
I like playing Pokemon. Pokemon's really fun, and I also like reading. I read a lot.
Just the ability to learn and understand things means a lot to me. Just having this connection and seeing how much we don't understand, but understanding and realizing how much we do understand it's mind-boggling.
For me, probably the opportunity to be able to use my knowledge to create things, to be able to be creative, to be able to take what I've learned in the classroom and go out into the world and use it to make something that wasn't there before.
Okay, so here's the deal. We're going to be bringing on our guest. Wonderful professor Alex Pattakos is going to be joining us. He is the co-author with Elaine Dundon of the OPA way. OPA! OPA!
Yeah, I still feel bad I didn't bring Greek food for you.
I know. We were a little disappointed. Finding joy and meaning in everyday life and work. We have a wonderful guest joining us. Alex Pattakos is his name. He's a PhD and is the co-founder of the OPA way. He is a co-author with Elaine Dundon of the OPA way, Finding Joy and Meaning in Everyday Life and Work. He's also the author of Prisoners of Our Thoughts, an international best-selling book, and was affectionately named Dr. Meaning. Alex is dedicated to bringing meaning to work, the workplace, and into everyday lives. He's also a U.S. Army veteran. He's also a former therapist, mental health administrator, political campaign organizer, a full-time university professor of public and business administration, and has been a member of the International Academic Board of the International Center for Leading Studies based in Athens, Greece. Alex Pattakos, welcome to the Matt Townsend Show.
Thank you, Matt. It's great to be with you.
It's so great to have you. When I saw an article, I think that you had written in the Huffington Post. I can't remember. I think that was it. And I thought, okay, we've got to have this man on the show because you happen to have kind of, I guess, been mentored, grown up with one of my favorite humans on earth who's since passed, Viktor Frankl.
That's correct. And as a matter of fact, there's another person, and let me give a quick shout out, because just prior to joining your show, I was listening to your show for a few minutes using BYU Radio app.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to give a plug.
A little plug. Go to BYURadio.org. You can get an app and just listen.
Exactly. But yes, Viktor Frankl was one, and then there's another one that I have to mention because I'm sure you're familiar with him. He wrote the foreword to my book, Prisoners of Our Thoughts, and that's the late Dr. Stephen Covey.
Oh, love him. He was my mentor.
There you go.
Oh, man. Did he write a foreword for your book?
He wrote the foreword to Prisoners of Our Thoughts. It was an excellent foreword, and he was also very, very much influenced by Viktor Frankl's thinking and work and life. So, so I'm really blessed to have both of them.
Yeah. And honestly, how does somebody, it seems like everybody, Alex, needs, at some point in our life, we're going to come up against the meaning of our life. Right. And have to, it might be at death, it might be at the death of someone we care about, it might be when we're deep in a hole. How did you get involved in the human search for meaning? And then maybe just talk a little bit about your involvement with Viktor.
Yeah. It's a very good question. And again, I was listening to some of the things, including your interview on the street prior to the break. And so obviously people have different perspectives as to what meaning is and so forth. So hopefully I can share that.
Right.
But this has been a quest for me ever since I was probably as young as that one young girl that you were interviewing on the street. I mean, it's always been something that has always made me wonder, why is it that some people get through life transitions more easily, or at least more optimistically than others? I've always had a very resilient spirit, and and because of my Greek background, that was something that I think was part of my DNA. But I've always questioned, what's the meaning? Because as you mentioned earlier, many people don't really know necessarily how to define meaning in their life, either their personal life or their work life, but they certainly can describe what is meaningless.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's from that kind of point of departure that you can move towards the quest for meaning. And so there are a lot of life events that took place for me. I mean, as a young child, when I was in the military, that was obviously something that had major implications from my thinking and my life in the future.
Right.
And then there are a lot of other milestones that I call meaning moments or meaning milestones, depending on how significant they are to you, that really kind of almost gave me a whack on the side of the head and said, "Hey, Alex, you gotta think about these things. And this is where Socrates' great quote, "Know thyself." There's actually Socrates and others, and so knowing thyself, knowing myself, became a very impassioned quest.
That's a great line. Impassioned quest is to figure out yourself.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
And it's an ongoing process because, I know Dr. Frankl once told me, he said that, I asked him the question of what is the meaning of life, and he said the meaning of life is a search for meaning.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop.
Right.
And so that's a very important thing for your listeners to understand is that we will go through life, and they will be, if you remember the Austin Powers movies, and you had that little character, Mini-Me, I refer in my book, Prisoners of Our Thoughts, to mini meanings. So not every meaning that we discover is necessarily a major milestone in our life, but it's still significant because if we take those mini meanings and stay aware of them over time, maybe we can weave together a larger meaning, a larger purpose.
I love that. And I love the idea, too, that it's kind of an unfolding and it's an uncovering, right? So as you get more skilled, more understanding of yourself, your questions seem to get better, so your meaning can evolve as you're growing. Yeah. Thank heavens, or you'd be boxed into some tiny little box of Pokemon.
Exactly. And unfortunately, I think in particularly our postmodern, quote-unquote, Western society, we don't start early enough with the meaning questions, the existential questions.
Right.
And then it's, unfortunately, later in life, either we go through a major crisis or we get older and all of a sudden we face our mortality, that we start asking things, and then we start questioning, what's on our bucket list, what really matters to me, and so forth. And wouldn't it be great if we could bring the meaning questions and really get the know thyself kind of challenge to younger children in the early parts of their educational process?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, then they could connect everything else they're learning to this bigger meaning.
Absolutely.
It seems like there's a disconnect there, isn't there? So we're just forcing them to learn without a context.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and what's the impact of that? I guess just scattered meaning, scattered lives.
Well, it's scattered meaning, but it's also and again, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit because I really want to talk about what are the core principles and prisms of our thoughts real quickly today, and then also get into the OPA way, because OPA is really something that's much more inspirational and aspirational than thinking about, am I a prisoner of my thoughts? Is
right.
My family prison? It sounds more therapeutic, and I really want listeners to find that there is a formula for searching for meaning that is much more aspirational and inspirational than feeling that there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, you don't want to do it just, out of a deficit. You want to do it out of a purpose, an appreciative side.
And actually, when we ask for these deeper meaning questions, as Dr. Frankl would say, that's actually part of our humanness. That's actually something that is healthy. It's not a sign when we start asking, why am I doing this? Why am I in this relationship? What am I doing in this job? What am I studying in school? When you ask those questions, that's actually part of our own humanity.
Yeah, that's powerful. And then you, so the pursuit of these deeper questions makes you more human and probably more able to connect to humanity.
Absolutely. And that's definitely going to get the O in the OPA way. I like to have to kind of raise. I like the way you call it the OPA way.
I know. You have to explain how to say that. It's OPA.
There you go. OPA. But the O in OPA is an acronym in our new book, and it really refers to connecting meaningfully with others. Others is the O.
Yeah. Okay. Huge.
So you can see whether it's your family, your neighborhood, your church, your organization, your nation. That kind of thing.
Well, that's part of what you heard in the audio there earlier on the Man on the Street. Everyone kept bringing up people, family, friends.
Exactly. And I'm going to push back on you a little bit here too, Matt, on the idea about food, because one of the things, and I know that you don't see meaning in food, but if we go back to again the Greek culture, actually the English word symposium is actually goes back to its Greek roots, which is really about eating and drinking together. And I know that's part of what you like about it.
Yeah.
But even making a dinner together, cooking together is a meaningful connection.
Well, don't you think? I can see that. I can see how some people can do that. It's I don't know. I guess it's culture, isn't it? It's like tradition, and that's I guess one of the things about our meaning. Yeah. You can hand it down culturally. You can hand down the meaning of like food and gathering as a family and making dinners together. In fact, I have some awesome Greek clients, and they love to make dinner together. It's one of their great rituals. And I sit there and I think, wow, okay, that works
and so
for
culturally, you're absolutely right. I mean, even the notion of coffee. There's a section in our new book called, there's always time for coffee to the Greeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of that is it's not about the coffee. It's not like going into a Starbucks, getting a to-go cup and leaving.
Right.
It's about sitting with your friends, with your colleagues, with your family, and conversing and just being in their space and being able to feel the connection.
It's community. It's
community. Absolutely.
I love that word, communing. Mm-hmm. So again, tell me, what is it then? What is it that humans need about meaning? What does meaning deliver? And why, for example, if connecting is a big part of it, what is it about that need?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think part of it, and again, I'm going to kind of digress a little bit here because I'm going to be linking Prisoners of Our Thoughts and the message in there with the OPA way as we move forward. But, the basic idea is that Dr. Frankl believed very strongly that the primary intrinsic, not extrinsic, but intrinsic motivation of all human beings is a search for meaning. People want to know that their life matters, that their work matters, that their relationships matter, and so forth. They want to make a difference in some way. And, and to feel that is a major driver for, achieving whatever we might set our eyes out for, our goals. And so part of it is the meaning over time. We found this, particularly when people go through major crises, is that they're much more likely to stay engaged with whatever the challenge is. They're much more likely to be resilient. They're much more likely to stay healthy if they see meaning in what they're doing. And they're much more likely to perform and even be more creative. Yeah. And so part of the reason why the meaning question and that quest is so powerful and so important is the fact that it really helps us, because we all know this, and I know your listeners will recognize this, that it's really at those times when things are not going well that you find out who you really are. You really dig deep into your soul. Right. And you also find out who your true friends are. And, meaning is, in terms of really where we find the deepest sources of meaning really comes at those transitional moments in our lives where things aren't necessarily going as planned.
To me, that is the number one lesson I learned many years ago when I first read Man's Search for Meaning. And Victor tells the story of his of being in Auschwitz. This Jewish man who would look over, I guess, to the female camps and dream of and think about his wife.
Absolutely. Yep.
And how that produced this meaning, and then eventually thinking about the day that he would take all the lessons from Auschwitz and take it back to his people in classes as a psychiatrist and teach these students about the power of meaning.
That's right.
It's what got him through.
It got him through, and he could even envision when he was in the camps being not only with his wife and his family, who he lost most of them in the camps, but he could even visualize being in front of students and giving them a lecture about meaning and about how to survive through whatever circumstances they're facing. And interestingly enough, after he got out, he was so explicit in detail about what he could imagine his lecture being that when he got out of the camps and it was liberated, he actually, years later, found himself giving that exact lecture in California.
Really? Self-fulfilling right there.
Yep.
Well, what's so powerful about that, too, the power of having a vision like that and your own meaning in your life, it's not dependent on his wife being alive. Mm-hmm. So he was still getting the motivation and the inspiration and the joy, the little that he could get in that camp by simply having that meaning there.
That's right.
Even if his wife wasn't alive at the time.
That's right.
That's such
and his wife, that was his first wife. She did pass on. She was killed in the camp, so he never did get together. And the sad part is that he lost her, but at the same time, that inspiration and that he always had that spiritual connection with her anyway, even afterwards.
See, I love that, and I think that's why we're doing the show, Alex. Right there, we're talking with Alex Pattakos, who's a PhD, co-founder of the OPA Way, and is that a book? Is the book coming out soon?
The book is coming out in the fall. Of course, Prisoners of Our Thoughts, for all your listeners out there, Prisoners, plural, of Our Thoughts, is available in bookstores and on Amazon. And then the OPA Way book is now available on Amazon for pre-order.
Oh, wow.
So if you order it, even though it comes out in the fall, you'll be one of the first ones to get it.
So, do you have a website, too? I know you have a website for Prisoners of Our Thoughts.
Yeah, well, the website for the OPA Way is, www.theopaway.com.
That's great. Theopaway.com.
There's information there, and obviously follow us on Twitter at The OPA Way, and like us on Facebook, The OPA Way as well.
This is the Matt Townsend Show, helping you find meaning in life right here on Sirius XM, 143 BYU Radio. Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. Listen to that music. If you go to the website, the OPA Way, if you go to the OPA Way, which is the website of our wonderful guest today, Alex Pattakos is joining us, this is the music that will be playing. He's trying to teach us the OPA Way. The O in the OPA is this idea of connecting. And part of meaning and finding meaning in life is the connection part of our life. Dr. Alex Pattakos is joining us, co-founder of the OPA Way and also the author of the book with Elaine Dundon, the OPA Way, Finding Joy and Meaning in Everyday Life. He's also the author of the international best-selling book, Prisoners of Our Thoughts, which is kind of a deeper look at some of the principles that Viktor Frankl taught. And how you can implement them in your lives. And so we called Dr. Pattakos to be on. He's also affectionately known as Dr. Meaning. So welcome back, Alex.
Yeah, it's great. Isn't that music?
I love that.
Kind of uplifting.
It totally. It just gets you feeling good. Like, you know what? Okay, this is good. This is hope.
Yeah.
Love it.
And we all need that. We all need more as more and more people around the world, because we've actually, Elaine and I have been doing this now as we've been getting ready for the launch of our book, and we've been speaking and doing workshops about the OPA Way. People keep on telling us, we need more OPA in our lives.
You do. Well, and explain OPA, because you hear the word, you hear at a Greek wedding, or you'll hear it somewhere. What does it mean? What does that mean?
Well, the common Greek word OPA actually has ancient roots. It goes back to the writings of Homer in the Iliad and the Odyssey, believe it or not. And in the ancient times, we've traced it, and again, there's a whole chapter in our book that kind of describes this origins of the word from the ancient Greek. But originally, Homer was referring to, and the followers of that entire period really looked at the OPA in two different ways, because in the Greek alphabet there are actually two letter O's. There's Omicron and there's Omega.
Omega, right.
And the Omicron OPA basically means, which is kind of like the music that you just heard on our website, it's really about the celebration of life.
Cool.
It's inspirational. It's really enthusiastic. It's enthusiasm and passion for life. And that's what you hear typically at a Greek festival, or people breaking plates or dancing in the movies. The Omega side of the OPA coin is something a little different, and that's something that unfortunately a lot of people, even Greeks, sometimes forget. And that really refers to remaining awake, look out for danger, look out for opportunities in one's path. And so that becomes a very important piece of this entire mystery of the common roots of OPA, because a lot of times we only think about OPA in terms of, we're just having fun.
Right.
And, that can get us into trouble. So
then you got to watch the other side.
You got to watch it. So it's almost like a Greek version of the yin and the yang.
Yeah. How fun.
So Elaine and I took that, and of course we spent a lot of time in Greece going back and forth. We've done a lot of research on this, and we want to do something that would put it in a contemporary, modern-day context. So we created an acronym, and O, P, and A in English, where O, as I said earlier, it refers to others, connect meaningfully with others. And a large part of what I heard prior to my coming on your show was really about connections with family, with church, with community, and so forth. The P in OPA refers to engaging with deeper purpose. P is purpose. And so that's another element that you were describing, because there's a section in our book, and there's also a reference to this in Prisons of Our Thoughts, that where there's a purpose, we actually heard the old saying, if there's a will, where there's a will, there's a way.
Right.
And what we've added to that, and Dr. Frankl did the same thing in a little bit different context, where there's a purpose, there's a will.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there you go. There's the birth of the will, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So the idea behind the P is really engaging with deeper purpose, and that gets into know thyself, and there's some other elements that I can share with you if you'd like. The A in OPA is also one that has very strong connections to Prisoners of Our Thoughts and to Viktor Frankl's theories and his approach, and that refers to attitude. But to the Greeks, OPA, the A in OPA, means embrace life, all of life, with attitude. It's not just about the happy times. It's not just about the positive psychology that we hear a lot about.
Right.
There's so many books that have been written in the last couple of years on happiness that people they're missing the boat here in a lot of ways, because life itself has ups and downs.
Yeah, so it's not just the pursuit of happiness in the up.
Exactly.
It's also pursuing, embracing life with attitude in the downs as well.
In the downs, and then taking those moments, because I remember years ago a Catholic monk by the name of Thomas More told me, he said, our most soulful times are when we are out of balance, not when we're in balance.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
So when we're out of balance and things aren't going so well, those are perfect times to do some soul searching, to know thyself, to really do some what I refer to, and there's a book in the book Prisons of Our Thoughts, I have an exercise in there called existential digging. It's a way of doing meaning analysis to find out when things aren't going so well, not just what do we do about it, how do we feel about it, not just what we learn from that, but also what are we going to do about the learning that we have from that situation so that we can grow and develop.
That is powerful. OPA, connecting meaningfully with others, engaging. The P is
with deeper
purpose, and A is the attitude, embrace all life.
Embrace life with attitude.
I love that.
And the Greeks are really good at that in terms of embracing life. With all, because they leave their their feelings out on their sleeves.
Yeah, right.
They don't hide a lot like some cultures kind of keep things hidden.
Yeah.
And so they're very open about it. They're very expressive. They move their hands a lot. That's part of the Mediterranean culture as well, more broadly. But the idea here is that when things aren't going well, you got to realize that sometimes, you are going to lose a job, or maybe, that your budget is going to hurt, or you're going to break up a relationship or whatever. Well, what do you do about it?
Yeah. So it's not just looking, when you talk about meaning, you're not just saying, go into this idyllic state of being and find the best. But sometimes you can find your purpose, your passion, your connections when in the hardest times, the darkest times. I mean, that makes sense. At a funeral, if you lose someone dear to you, all of a sudden you might see all of the connections you've lost.
That's right.
For years.
That's right.
And in a way, I guess you're saying that could ignite the passion. That could ignite the appreciation, the attitude.
So the appreciation, and it ignites that quest for an opportunity for inner knowing, that know thyself.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're starting to get connected to your core essence.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to get connected with being a more authentic person. You start to question more about life, And these are all part of the P in OPA. And so that's all part of the the process. And again, we obviously describe this in greater detail, tried to do this in a very short interview, but we don't do enough of that kind of existential stuff until it's too late.
Right. Well, and we actually run. We run away from these events. We run away from these experiences. And you're saying step in. Yeah.
We want happiness. And one of the reasons the subtitle of our new book, The OPA Way, is Finding Joy and Meaning, is that we see joy differently than, and much more deeper, much more spiritually grounded than happiness. Because happiness is typically fleeting, it's typically external.
Yeah.
And so when you think about the deeper joy that you receive, and some of the comments I heard from your previous guests and the interviews you did, people find joy in doing things for others, for example.
Yeah.
That brings meaning to their life.
Oh, yeah. And again, I guess, and like you say, it reconnects you down to your deepest purpose, your essence.
That's your core essence.
Yeah.
And we all have that. And see, that's part of it. And so even though, on the one hand, I don't want to even, I happen to be, Greek Orthodox faith, Orthodox Christian. But the idea, and the key is I want to make sure that your listeners, you don't have to be a certain faith-based tradition,
right,
a certain religion, denomination. But obviously, faith, and Dr. Frankl found this, I found this, that people who do have some type of faith are much more likely to see themselves on a quest for meaning.
Yeah. Oh, this is powerful. We're talking with Alex Pattakos. Again, you've got to go to his website, the OPA Way, OPAway.com. And he'll be releasing later this fall, but you can pre-order his book that he wrote with Elaine Dundon, The OPA Way, Finding Joy and Meaning in Everyday Life and Work. He also is the author of Prisoners of Our Thoughts, which is an international best-selling book. Go look for both of them. We're going to take a break. We're coming back more with Alex Pattakos right after this break. You're listening to the Matt Townsend Show right here on BYU Radio. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Matt Townsend Show. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Townsend, doing what we can on the program to help you and your loved ones find the good life. And that is the topic we're discussing today on the show, meaning and the meaning of life. How do you find, your connections? How do you find your passion? How do you find the right attitude? We call it, we don't. Alex Pattakos, our guest today, calls it the OPA Way, Finding Joy and Meaning in Everyday Life and Work. He's also the author of the book Prisoners of Our Thoughts, an international best-selling book. And a lot of that has to do with his work with Viktor Frankl, one of my favorite humans on earth. I learned more just about choice and finding meaning in life from that one man. Again, I didn't know him, but luckily we're talking to Alex Pattakos, who did know him and did work with him. So again, Alex, thank you so much for being here, and welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Matt. And let me just start off by saying OPA.
OPA!
The word OPA is really becoming a formula for that guidepost towards meaning.
Yeah. And so I think you've done it perfectly, because what I love is you're not about like a quick fix to happiness.
Right.
You're more about kind of the long, constant journey of finding joy in the now and in the living and in life. It's there. It's always there. You just got to be looking for it.
That's right. Yeah, and in that sense, it's a very important point, because in that sense, we really don't create meaning.
Right.
And Frankl would agree with this, is that we're really finding or discovering meaning, because meaning is always around us.
Right.
But it's our responsibility, our personal responsibility, to do something about it in terms of finding it, making the connections, really asking the deep questions about purpose, and making sure that we maintain an attitude that allows us to keep on moving forward, so we don't get stuck and become a prisoner of our thoughts.
I love that, because there's the book, right? Prisoner of Your Thoughts. The idea that you find it also means you can turn anything into it. Mm-hmm. Right? You're going to either find a connection, a passion, or a place for a better attitude in everything you've got.
I mean, there's something, and I want to make sure that listeners don't feel that we're marginalizing the significance of some of the traumas that we have go through. I mean, the families of this Malaysian flight, for example, or people in different situations around the world. In no way do we want to take that lightly. Mm-hmm. It's the idea of, to what extent, why is it that some people go through these horrific experiences in their lives and make it and keep on going forward, where others give up?
Yeah.
And so that's a major piece. And so what Elaine and I like to say is it's really about meaning first, because meaning is the thing that drives and keeps us engaged with life, with our work, and so forth. Meaning is what helps us increase our resilience levels so that we can bounce back when things are tough.
Right.
Meaning is what keeps us healthy. Meaning is what helps us perform and be innovative so that we can find solutions to whatever dilemmas we may be facing. So meaning first is a very important lesson to be learned here.
Well, that seems like the beginning, because how else would you know how to handle any other part of life? Without meaning first, you would just, I guess experience life.
If you don't, we become more animalistic in a sense of how we respond to things.
Yeah, fight or flight, huh?
Right, and so that's a key thing. And if there's a passage that Stephen Covey wrote in Prisons of Her Thoughts, and he really talks about between stimulus and response, there's a space, and it's within that space is where we can find our happiness and our growth and so forth. So it's up to us how we're going to respond. But if we don't do these deeper kind of OPA, OPA kinds of analyses, we just respond like people do, say, that need anger management. They do it to road rage, or they do instinctively, and then we're not really we're not respecting our full human dignity and our full human spirit.
Yeah, and it's almost not even a choice anymore. It's a reaction.
It's a reaction.
Yeah.
And that's why one of the reasons we want OPA people to find this is because the idea is that there are guideposts. I mean, Elaine and I have actually more recently been referred to and identified as oracles of meaning. And that sounds kind of arrogant, but on the one hand, what they're saying is we don't have the answers, but we have guideposts that we can, based on our own lives and based on the experiences we've had, to help others guide them along the path towards meaning.
What are some more OPA strategies? What are some more ways that we go about creating meaning?
Okay, yeah. I'll just share a few of them right now. If we take the O, for example, the connect meaningfully with others. Others is the O in OPA. We really have three major practices that we refer to. One of them is we have a chapter called Connect with the Village. And again, this goes back to the Mediterranean, the Greek way of life, is that most of us have a village in Greece that we can say this is where we're from. And the idea behind the village concept is very powerful because it's even probably more misused than the word community when we talk about community of practice and so forth, because we talk about it takes a village to raise a child. We live in a global village, but we don't treat each other like villagers.
Right, no.
We're almost like strangers. And, we're rude to people. So within the whole notion, for example, of how do we connect with the village, which is really a Greek cultural and a Greek philosophical embedded value, is there are things like respecting humanity, developing and helping others feel that they belong, helping people understand. And then there's practices, there are examples of how we do this, how you can ensure that people understand that we're all interdependent and that one person in a village doing something wrong, that rotten apple can actually impact the entire village.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then there's a whole section and chapter, for example, on hospitality, which relates to others, because the idea behind hospitality, which is really a Greek concept that goes back to Greek mythology, to the king of the gods, Zeus.
Yeah.
The Greeks are known for hospitality, being kind to others, being generous, respecting each person as a unique human spirit. I mean, these are things that, when you think about hospitality in the OPA way, it's not like going into McDonald's and saying, can I help you?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's much more feeling like, geez, I remember a Greek restaurant in Chicago years ago I went to, and I loved going to this restaurant because the sign, and you've probably seen this in other places as well, but the sign was, and they actually practiced this, the sign said, welcome home. So that's kind of the notion of the Greek hospitality.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I have this client I keep bringing up, but I've been invited to dinner. They've brought me meals. They've brought me food. They're my brother. They're my sister, and I was just coaching them, but they are like their family now, and it's almost just assumed. Of course, you will be.
And see, that makes that, and you in the work that you do and the work that we do, obviously, the same way, is that we want to connect meaningfully with people, whether they're clients or not. Right? I mean, that's the idea.
Right.
And we don't want to see our work be nothing more than transactions.
Yeah. What good is that? Exactly. I mean, in a weird way, it's more efficient on you, but it's not more effective. It's not going to create the memories. It doesn't create love.
That's right.
It just
is transaction.
When you think
about even going to a restaurant, I mean, if you go to a Greek restaurant, as an example, you may or may not find a restaurant that has the best quality food. And I know you don't really care so much about the food. So
no, I don't care.
Good for you, Matt. You care about the experience.
Yeah.
Right? How do people treat you? And you can go to another place that has the best quality food in the world, but the customer service is really terrible. It's not hospitable. You feel like, I can't wait. It's expensive. I got to leave because I can't stand being in this environment.
Yeah. And no one gives you a hug.
And nobody gives you a hug. Nobody cares.
That's right.
So anyway, so those are all elements of the O.
That's the OPA, the connection.
Right.
That's great.
You know, the P, which is engage with deeper purpose, this is, again, relates to know thyself, for example, and this really gets down to authenticity. It gets down to examining and connecting with your core essence. It's really understanding questioning, and unfortunately we don't teach even young people, you know, and obviously adults, sometimes it's wait until it's too late, to start questioning the meaning of their life, to question, why do they do what I'm doing? Why do you have to wait to the point where you have a bucket list?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, let's start it early. And so there's a whole element there of understanding that. There's another chapter, for example, there's a Greek concept called adite, which is really about really understanding, you know, your habits, understanding what integrity means, really building the character, which I know is, you know, very fundamental to a lot of the things that you and I both do.
Yeah.
So that people feel that, you know, that what they're doing, that they're working with honesty, they're working with integrity, they're pursuing excellence in whatever they may do, whether it's their interpersonal relationships, whether it's their work, whatever it may be, you know, they don't want to slack off.
No.
And those are important things that help us engage with deeper purpose.
Well, and create, again, it seems like somewhere you've got to get the energy to do all of this. And it seems like the P in OPA is the purpose that generates the energy. It's the connection to your purpose.
That's right. Well, you know, and you also get the same kind of fuel, because if you think about O, P, and A together as a formula for meaning, all three of those together, they're going to come in different places, because some people they're stronger in the O than they are in the P, or they're really not so good in O and P, but they really have a great attitude.
They got the attitude right.
You know what I mean? So they're going to charge through, you know, and they're going to make it regardless.
That's perfect.
Other people might have their purpose, and then still their attitude is kind of questioning, you know, and maybe they even have a bad attitude.
Yeah.
So you really need all three, and that's why one of the things I'd like listeners to think about when they hear the Greek word and OPA, now after listening to your show, is that it becomes a mantra for living and working.
Well, and if you've ever known a Greek, you've heard it.
You've heard it.
It's just, I love it, and it has just inherent in it this value and this energy. We're talking with Alex Pattakos, PhD, and is the co-founder of the OPA Way, and also a book that will be out with Elaine Dundon later in the year in October, or later in the year in the fall, The OPA Way, Finding Joy and Meaning in Everyday Life and Work. But also, he's written an international best-selling book called Prisoner of Our Thoughts. And it almost sounds like, Alex, you've kind of taken both sides of the coin. The prisoner's side, where kind of the problems of how we get stuck, and then the OPA side, which is, I mean, maybe I guess the solutions, the more positive approach.
Matt, you're right on.
Did I feel it right?
You did it right. You did a good job. I couldn't have said it better myself.
I know. You know what? I think you actually probably said that somewhere in the interview, and I just picked it up.
Well, the key word here is OPA.
Yep.
Because everybody can say it. And you can't say it with enthusiasm and not feel good.
It's right. That's right. I can't. I'm going to be saying it the rest of my life.
There you go.
I'm going to be adopted into the Greek culture.
Well, let me just, if I could share this real quickly. Elaine and I are going to be giving a public lecture in Salt Lake City in May.
Wow, cool.
Sponsored by the Hellenic Cultural Association of Salt Lake City. As you know, there are a lot of Greeks in the Salt Lake area.
You bet, absolutely.
So we will be there in the middle of May, the weekend of May 16th. So any listeners who happen to be in the Salt Lake, Provo area.
That's huge. May 16th. Kate, will you send me an email on that?
I will.
And then what we'll do is maybe even have you into the studio if we can get you in.
That'd be great.
But I for sure need you back when you're releasing the book,
that'd be
The OPA Way, because I want to get that out there. We have about 2.5 minutes, Alex. If you had to wrap it up, what I always like to talk about is the one thing. So kind of like the most leveraged one thing that we could all do to get us connected to our meaning and our worth in life. What's the one thing that you found in OPA that makes the biggest difference?
Yeah.
And that maybe there's just not one.
Yeah, it's difficult because, I mean, obviously I could be trite and I could say, well, read the book and that'll help you, because, you know, as you noted earlier in your show, you know, meaning is different for different people, and I can't tell somebody this is the meaning in your life. Obviously, what I want to do is I want them to constantly examine how are they connecting with others, the O, you know, whether it's your family, your friends, your neighbors. I mean, do you treat them with respect? Do you say hello to them? If you say hello, do you really mean it? And then are you really thinking about your purpose? And your purpose can change over time. There's always meaning. I mean, meaning exists regardless of what, even though your purpose changes as you go over your lifespan.
Yeah.
But meaning is always going to be there. And so part of it is asking these kinds of purposeful questions. And then attitude. I mean, attitude is critical. I mean, that was the first principle in Prisoners of Our Thoughts. That was the thing that kept Viktor Frankl alive during some of the most horrific experiences he ever had in his life. And so the idea is being able to understand that, that you have personal responsibility for this quest. It's not something that you can get from your parents. Sorry there.
Yeah.
It's not something you can get from your neighbors, your coworkers. You're really personally responsible for getting in the driver's seat.
Yeah. Wow. But see, I mean, again, not trite, but the principles. Connecting, engaging with a deeper purpose, and the attitude to embrace all life. Beautiful
well, the easier
stuff.
way to say it, which we have people from all kinds of countries and cultures. Elaine and I were not too long ago in Hong Kong, and we had these little young Chinese kids, 11 to 14 years of age, and they could all say the word OPA.
OPA.
Others, purpose, attitude. Others, purpose, attitude. That should be your mantra.
No, that is.
Whether it's in your schools, whether it's your workplace, whether it's at home. How are you treating others? Are you engaged with deeper purpose? And, think about your attitude.
Yeah.
Are you embracing life in such a way that the idea behind embracing even the darker times in your life allows you to not be a prisoner of your thoughts, and at least gives you some of the energy, some of the fuel to move forward.
Beautiful. Alex Pattakos, founder of the OPA Way. Go to his website, theopaway.com. Check out the book coming out in fall, The OPA Way, and also look up his book that's already out there, international best-selling book, Prisoners of Our Thoughts. Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.
Look forward to seeing you in May.
Oh, can't wait.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
And OPA! Love it. You know what? Isn't it amazing? The power of a human being. Just to Viktor Frankl influences Alex Pattakos. Alex comes on and teaches us the OPA way. There it is. Contagious. Love it.